Welcome back after the break. We'll get back into our conversation with Dr. Kakkar. So, doctor, getting more into this complications and ailments of the liver, let's talk about liver cirrhosis and liver cancer. So, what are the causes for both of this? Let's start with cirrhosis.
Cirrhosis of the liver is basically scarring.
Okay.
Scarring within the liver happens because of biological insults, chemical insults. The biological insults being mainly hepatitis B, hepatitis C. Certain chemical agents that can induce a similar scarring process will be alcohol. Certain other radioactive toxins which are not so common in our setup. Certain inborn errors of metabolism called Wilson's disease, hemochromatosis, alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiencies, and certain autoimmune liver conditions like autoimmune hepatitis, sclerosing cholangitis, biliary cirrhosis, etc. Certain liver cancers as well, primarily, or those that happen secondary to a cirrhotic process, are all situations that land us up with the complex of cirrhosis and end stage liver disease.
Okay, and what is the treatment available for it?
So, the treatment of end stage liver disease is only liver transplantation. And what I mean by end stage liver disease is that a patient who has more than 70% of his liver damaged because of the cirrhotic process, which of course was secondary to all these causes that we just enumerated, and when it hits that magic 70% number, it starts to present itself in the form of like water collecting in the belly, the feet starts to swell up, they start to have vomiting with blood in it, they pass motion which has black colored denatured blood in it, they start getting confused, they start losing muscle mass, they look like cachectic with with a bloated belly, and then subsequently followed by various forms of bleeding tendencies.
All of this is only detected in the final stage. So, most of the patients will come to you with this condition, like 70% of their liver is damaged.
Yes.
So, liver transplant is the only option. And how is the liver transplantation seen in India?
The liver transplant is now picking up. For the last 5 years, we have made very, very long strides in this field, and there are several issues. One was the availability of technically trained manpower along with appropriate multidisciplinary care and multimodality infrastructure available in these tertiary care centers in our hospital. And for the last 5 years, because of whatever prosperity and economic growth that we have witnessed in our country, has allowed these centers to be developed in various parts of the country. I would say we have at least 5 recognized and established centers doing liver transplants regularly in our country at this point in time. Although one may argue that in a country of 25 states, what are 5 programs?
Yes.
But still, I mean, as compared to what was close to nothing about 5 to 6 years ago, we have something which is substantial, in its outcomes as well as performance.
How many people are coming forward and donating their livers, and what is this whole process of donating a liver? Just tell me about the donors and the receptors. What should how much of their liver will a donor donate?
A living donor can typically donate up to 70% of the liver volume, and this is mainly because the liver can regenerate itself. As long as you leave at least 30% or more of the liver behind in the donor, which is adequately perfused and drained, it should be able to regenerate back to its pre-donation volume within a matter of 8 to 12 weeks, about 2 to 3 months.
Let's say blood donation has picked up very well in our country, but then liver donation, how many people come in for liver donation?
Unfortunately, a lot of people have this idea that there is only one liver in the body, and that if you were to donate that liver, one would die.
Yeah.
Obviously, we would never be able to undertake such a procedure on a normal human being. So we take care of all the precautions that need to be taken to ensure the donor safety. Donor safety receives the highest ever priority in liver transplantation. So, because of this myth, we have a lot of reluctance in the family members of recipients, in terms of volunteering to be donors.
So, family members are given first preference. What would you look for in a donor?
A donor essentially has to be an adult, more than 18 years in age, but we would prefer them to be younger than 55, because after that the livers are not so good. We would have them free of any major illnesses, particularly liver ailments. They should be related to the family, one way or the other, and they should be preferably blood group compatible. And
But is it only preferably blood group compatible? You don't have to match blood groups when it comes to liver transplantation, is it?
Not absolutely mandatory. I mean, the outcomes are better if the blood groups are matched, But if one does not have a blood group compatible donor within the family, we can even go ahead with the ABO incompatible living donor liver transplant.
Okay, is there should only be a living donor, is it? What about a donor who's passed away and you can't, they take your eyes for donation after that?
Right.
So, liver, what's the scene with that?
So, the other option for donations are the cadaveric donors, and what I mean by cadavers are brain dead patients.
Okay.
Patients who have suffered irreversible brain death secondary to either neurotrauma
Okay.
or neurosurgery. The families of these donors can come forward and donate these organs. In fact, we are the largest cadaveric donor liver transplant program in the country, and these people, the livers of these people, can be used to transplant into patients who have end-stage liver disease. The unfortunate fact of the matter is that in spite of us being the largest program in the country, the numbers available to us are far less than the necessity. There is a huge gap that exists between the requirement and the availability, and to that extent, more than 50% of the patients on our waiting list die while waiting for a cadaveric donor liver.
Is there any risk factor at all for donors?
If you look at the global experience, I mean the world over, the experience has been that 0.3 to 0.5%. That means 1 out of every 2 to 300 donors will suffer a major complication. Having said that, we have been luckily by the grace of God never had any problems in any of our donors. But once you did those numbers, 300 and plus donors, you may expect to have one major complication in a donor.
Minor complications? What are the minor complications?
Minor complications are less than 10% again, and that means you may have a clot in one of those veins, you may have a small infection in the lungs, sometimes you may have a wound abscess, you might have a cut surface leak of bile or blood, but those things are very conservatively managed, normally don't need a reoperation or does not even need to significantly extend the inpatient stay of the donor. So they usually have no long-term consequences for the donor. Okay. A donor for all practical purposes will live a completely healthy and normal lifestyle, can do any profession, and women can happily marry and bear children without any fear or any hesitation in that.
We'll have more on that, doctor. We'll move to a short break now. We'll be joined after the break by Mrs. Neena Prasad, a renowned dancer whose husband has just undergone a liver transplant surgery. So stay tuned.